you started the season in many ways with Bill Wagner, so it's only fair that we end up the season with Bill Wagner. He's here. The Army-Navy game's now in the history books, the 17-13 victory, Navy over Army. Bill, let's talk about the game first. Seen two articles about you, the fake punt, two articles by you in the Capital Gazette, and I know you also work for the Baltimore Sun. So let's talk about the fake punt first. What's your take? It surprised everybody.
Well, it surprised Diego Fagot, who was the player that ran the ball on the fake punt because he didn't know it was coming. It was a mistake, Graham. The long snapper misunderstood a check. He told me after the game when I spoke to him outside the Navy locker room, his name's Ethan Wynn, freshman, and he could not hear what Diego was saying as he called a check. Navy had installed a fake punt into the game plan, and Wynn just assumed that Diego had seen the look that he wanted to go with that fake punt and that that's what the check was. In fact, Diego was checking the blocking schemes and assignments because there was an overload. Army was overloaded to one side. So when he spotted that, he checked the blocking schemes, and the long snapper misunderstood, snapped the ball directly to Diego, who told us that he wasn't even looking at the center and certainly not expecting the ball. He was actually looking at the man he was assigned to block. And so it was a complete shock, and it was remarkable that Diego caught that ball. What amazing reactions, reflexes. He snared the ball right before it hit him in the helmet. It could have been disastrous for Navy. They were deep in their own territory at the time. It was 4th and 1, and I would not have been surprised for a fake punt if it was closer to midfield, but it was just too risky of a place for the coach Niumatalolo to actually call a fake punt. But Diego made the play of the game. He caught that ball and proceeded to run over an Army defender and then jump over another, and he gained 4 yards, picked up the first down. Navy wound up possessing the ball for close to 7 minutes, taking a lot of time off the clock, finished with a Bijan Nichols field goal that was kind of the clinching points.
Yeah, well, and I also saw another article by you in Capital Gazette, and I'm just going to tell all the viewers here, if you're not following Bill with the Capital Gazette or the Baltimore Sun or on Twitter, you need to. Great reporter. Was McMorris's tackle game saving? How do you compare those two plays? Because McMorris came up big. He had two great pass coverage plays, and then he had the big tackle of Buchanan, who's not easy to stop.
Well, absolutely. What Michael McMorris did was critical to preserving the victory. That was Jacoby Buchanan, the 260-pound fullback for Army. And, we just spoke about Diego Fagot making a great play, but he made a bad decision on that particular play that you're referencing. He, on his own, called a run blitz, that it was not called by the coaching staff. He made a command decision that he was going to run blitz on a 4th and short play. And he made a mistake. He ran into a line and he tried to jump over and was not successful. And the bottom line is the ball didn't go up the middle where he run blitzed, and Buchanan slipped out the backside. And once he got through the line of scrimmage, there was no one there, because that's the gap that Diego was supposed to fill, and he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And Michael McMorris, the cornerback, he's about 165 pounds soaking wet. And Buchanan, as we mentioned, 260. And he knew he couldn't bring him down if he went up high. So he just dove down low and got him around the ankles and held on tight until his teammates could rally there and help him get the guy on the ground. But Buchanan had nothing but green grass between him and the end zone. Now, it would have been a foot race, and he's a big guy, so it's possible that a Navy defender might have run him down. But for sure, Army would have had the ball probably in the red zone with an opportunity to go in for the winning touchdown.
Yeah, well, a great game. So I'm just curious, you've been a beat writer following Navy for at least 2 decades now. You've been with Capital Gazette for 30. How does this game stack up kind of in terms of the other games you've seen? You said earlier when we interviewed you that it was moments in games that stood out to you most. How does this game stand out to you compared to the others you've seen?
It was one of the more exciting games, and there are a lot of factors that made it unique. Obviously, playing in New York at MetLife Stadium, the first time held at this particular facility. The Army Navy game's been at the Meadowlands Sports Complex in East Rutherford, New Jersey before, but not at the MetLife Stadium. And I thought the folks with MetLife Stadium, the New Jersey and Sports and Exposition Authority, everyone involved did a great job. I thought they put together a fantastic Army Navy game. So that was one factor. Obviously, the backdrop of recognizing the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and there was a lot of stuff that happened before, during the game that recognized 9/11. So there was that element. But the biggest thing to me was this has been such a difficult season for Navy. We've talked about the toughest schedule in the modern history of Navy football, not even close. 11 of 12 opponents bowl eligible, a high, RPI in terms of this strength of schedule and difficulty. And obviously there's been a lot of events happened early in the season after the Air Force game, the whole saga with Ivan Jasper being dismissed as offensive coordinator, then rehired as quarterbacks coach, and just a lot of negatives that occurred. And Navy persevered, and they did improve over the course of the season, I feel. And so to win this game was just absolutely so critical and just so uplifting. It was really a season-saving victory was what it was. And there's not been many times over the years that Navy's been in that position. Army was a lot. During the time that Navy had the historic 14-game winning streak in the series, a win over Navy would have been season-saving for Army. But that has not been the case as much for Navy. And this was in particular was a season that just was desperate for a victory over an Army. And what I really thought was compelling, Graham, was that the Navy seniors, you referenced Michael McMorris, we referenced Diego Fagot, Chance Warren with that determined run that set up a touchdown on which he ran through a tackle attempt by Andre Carter, who just was named an All-American today, an Associated Press All-American. So the seniors for Navy, I thought, really stepped up and basically said, we are not losing this game. They drew a line in the sand, and they were not going to be denied. And I could sense that during the game, and the plays they made certainly attested to that.
Yeah, they certainly did. Let's talk a little bit about the seniors who are leaving, but the young freshmen. There were a number of freshmen who played in the game. I think Navy's maybe a little bit more unique than some of the other academies in terms of putting freshmen in. It might be, necessity is the mother of invention here. But at the start of the season, Coach Ken was super excited about this team, felt really good about the season, felt really positive. Is his enthusiasm maybe just a year too early in the sense of how the season went and how young his team is?
Well, there's no question that no one that's on the Navy coaching staff ever thought they would be playing so many sophomores and freshmen. And a lot of it's been due to injury, season-ending injuries to safeties, Mitch West and Kevin Brennan, season-ending injury, as it turned out, although we never knew it, to Will Harbor, who was a starting inside linebacker, season-ending injury to Marcel Gleaton, a wide receiver, other injuries that forced them to, juggle the lineup. But the bottom line is the junior class is almost missing for Navy. The players that should be juniors right now, a lot of them are gone. And it was a product of the pandemic. None of us realize how miserable it was at the Naval Academy during the 2020 spring semester and fall semester. They were on lockdown. They were basically quarantined to their rooms, and it was horrible. And nobody enjoyed it. And they came back to school not certain. Well, and especially when people were making decisions as to whether they were going to leave Navy, that's going to happen in the summertime. And they didn't know if it was going to be another semester of that. And the bottom line is a significant number of Navy players who would have been members of the class of 2023, they would have been juniors this year. They're gone. Go look at the roster. There's very, very few juniors. There's hardly any of them on the depth chart. And the senior class was rather small. There was 68 recruited players in the class that is going to graduate in 2022. They were down to 25 seniors on senior day, and about 12 of them are key contributors. So that is why so many freshmen and sophomores had to play out of necessity. They had holes in the lineup on the depth chart that had to be filled. Now, the good news is a lot of those players are talented. Rayon Lane, the safety, he's good. He played well. Inside linebacker Tyler Fletcher has played well and done some good things. So you just go on, and there's a lot of youngsters. Mikel Haywood, the kickoff returner, and he played more than he had all season at slot back against Army, and he made plays. A great catch, a very critical catch, I think a 24-yard pickup. So yes, the future bodes well, provided they can keep the players here, because, this is the era of college football. Transfer portal makes it easy to leave. And there's been far more transfers from Navy football than I'd ever seen previously, ever since the portal came into vogue and made it so much easier for guys to leave. And, I would caution a lot of players, by the way, and I'm not just speaking to Navy players, but players in general, think twice before you enter the transfer portal, because there's no spots available. Because of super seniors, the NCAA giving players extra years of eligibility for 2 years running, there's no roster spots anywhere. You enter a portal, you're risking not being anywhere, and trying to go down isn't easy, because the football championship subdivision schools are getting flooded with transfers, and they also have players that have been extended due to COVID. So, but it'll be important for the Navy coaching staff to retain these young players that have stepped up and showed well this season.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the coaching staff for a second. How big an impact, and was it positive or negative, did the firing of Coach Jasper have on the team, and then the rehiring? Did you get any sense of how that changed the morale?
I think and this, I never have really spoken to anyone about this other than the immediate aftermath. And we heard some, players went to social media and whatnot, but I think it galvanized the coaching staff and the players, and they were, rallied in defense of Ivan Jasper. And frankly, it's a good thing they kept Ivan Jasper, because he played a critical role in the improvement of Navy football. Number one, he coaches the quarterbacks, and clearly we saw sophomore Ty Lavatai improve over the course of the season. I thought Ty was outstanding in the Army-Navy game. He really showed a lot of command, a lot of poise. He directed the offense well, scored a couple touchdowns, played tough, played smart, no turnovers, took care of the ball. So obviously Coach Jasper did a good job of coaching up Ty over the course of the season. And, I know he wasn't considered the offensive coordinator anymore, but he was still involved with game planning, play calling. If you remember the game in which Coach Niumatalolo got hurt along the sideline when he got bowled into by a defender, he could barely stand. He stayed out there on the sideline, but barely. He had to turn the play calling over to Coach Jasper. Thank God Coach Jasper was there to do what he knew how to do and call plays for the rest of that game. So I think it was a galvanizing moment in a lot of ways. And you got to give Ivan Jasper a lot of credit. He could have just mailed it in for the rest of the season, said that I've been disrespected, and why should I give myself to this program anymore? But he's a professional, and he cares about his players and coaches, and that's in the end what was at the forefront of his mind. And he continued to coach the way he was expected to coach, and he was a crucial part of the improvement.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the quarterbacks for a second. Navy came out early on with both Lavatai and Xavier Arline, but Xavier pulled I believe a hamstring. And Coach Niumatalolo talked a little bit about in one of the post-game interviews about how he had to basically throw half of his game plan away. Are they moving to a 2-quarterback system? Was that just a setup for this particular game? Any take on what the future of what Navy quarterbacks looks like?
Well, I think Ty Lavatai has absolutely seized the job. He is the starter. This was a one-time thing. The coaching staff developed a game plan in which they were going to go into the pistol formation, is what I call it, because it had a back behind. The quarterback was in shotgun and had a back behind him. It was actually a slot back instead of a fullback, but that's a pistol formation, and that is really fits with Xavier and what he does. He's got, he's quick and fast and good moves. So I think that they wanted to use Xavier in that pistol formation because they thought he'd be very dangerous and elusive. And he had a 10-yard run on the play that he pulled his hamstring. So yes, they had a game plan in which they thought Xavier would be a little more effective than Ty. Now they continue to run some pistol formation stuff with Ty, and he did a good job with it, but he's just not as quick and fast and elusive as Xavier, and therefore he doesn't hit it as quickly. And that's what you need in that pistol. You want to, fake it and then make a quick move and hit it really quick. So I think that was a one-time thing. I do believe Ty Lavatai has clearly seized the starting job, but Xavier is a talented backup who brings a different element to the field. And I certainly think he can be used in spots. And obviously if Ty goes down, you're happy to have a veteran guy who's played in big games.
Yeah, well, talk about Ty Lavatai going down. I mean, I was thinking about his season, played through a knee injury, played through concussion protocol, played through, I don't know if it was a shoulder injury, a stinger, exactly what happened there, but continued to come back. The highest compliment I heard him paid was he is one seriously tough player.
Oh, absolutely. And, 6'2", 210 pounds, an option quarterback is going to get hit. They take a lot of pounding. Now, you got to be like Keenan Reynolds, who learned how to, not absorb the brutal blows. Keenan became a master at making sure that he did not take the brutal blows. But Ty has absorbed a lot of punishment over the course of the season. And as you mentioned, he went down with a leg injury, a lower body injury, and then he had the shoulder and the concussion. So he has been beat up, and he toughed it out throughout the season and got better. So kudos to Ty for sure.
Well, so as we wrap this up, I just want to kind of put the season in perspective. As I asked Coach Ken in a recent press conference, was his team peaking at the right time? Both you and he described it as improvement over the season. But in some ways, I think that the season, a trial by fire, if you want to call it that, really prepared them for this game. Had they not have had as tough a season, maybe more victories come in, and even just talk about McMorris in the Michael McMorris in the post-game presser. He talked about how he was really up against some really talented receivers and used to dealing with a couple of different moves and tracking them as he did his coverage. And it seems like it's that those losses that really prepared them for this victory. Any take on how the ended up being 4-8 on the season, how that really set them up for this game?
Well, there's no question that more than ever before, the records were not indicative of the Army was favored by 8.5 points at one time. It went down to 7.5, but Army played a much weaker schedule than Navy. We already have said at one point, several metrics rated Navy's schedule the toughest in the nation. Those same metrics, I think, at the end had it number 3. But that's unbelievable that they're not even a Power 5 conference school, and they're up there in all of football bowl subdivision as one of the toughest schedules. So there's no question that playing such a demanding, challenging schedule prepped Navy for this game in particular. And, there's what I say, I just wrote a column that's going to appear in our paper in which I said that this one victory over Army puts an entire different complexion on this season. You lose to Army and you're 3-9, and you can talk about playing a tough schedule and you can talk about showing improvement over the course of the season. But in the end, you got a bad taste in your mouth and you're going into the offseason on a down note because you've been swept by your service academy rivals and you're 3-9. 4-8 with a victory over Army changes everything. Now you're going into the offseason on a positive note. You're going in with momentum. You've beaten Army, and it just changes everything about the whole outlook of this season. It's just no win could have meant so much and changed things so drastically than this. And so, this was a clearly a season altering victory over Army for Navy.
Well, and just to dive into that just a little bit deeper, I've heard it said a couple of different times in a couple of different ways now that you can win all your games, but lose your rivalry match and the season's a disaster. Hearing some rumors that was a conversation that Coach Monken had with the CBS announcers before the game. Don't know if that's true or not. How true is it? I mean, I get your point about the victory over Army being a game changer in terms of momentum. But does a win over your rival in the academy change the dynamic? I mean, does that make a season that would have otherwise been a disaster a success? Momentum aside?
There's no question. And I mean, the Coach Monken said in his post-game press conference that it's hard to consider this season a success when you lose this game. And so they've had a great season. They are 8-4 and going to a bowl game, going to play Missouri. And that's what he said. It's difficult to feel like this was a good season when we lose this game. That is his exact quote. This is a devastating loss. So yeah, absolutely. It meant so much for Navy and puts a positive spin on an otherwise difficult season. And for Army, it's devastating and puts a negative note to an otherwise successful season. So it is a dramatic capper and on either side.
Right. And then last question. Last question. Coach, can 2 back-to-back losing seasons, given the victory over Army, how big a deal is that?
Well, I think Navy does have to take a long look at some things. This is actually 3 losing seasons out of 4. And the one successful season was 2019 when Malcolm Perry played Superman and rushed for over 2,000 yards and was just amazing. And that was a great season, 11-2, swept Army and Air Force, win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, upset Kansas State in the Liberty Bowl. I mean, that was just, but that 3 out of 4 losing seasons is a trend. So now a lot of it is the byproduct of being in the American Athletic Conference, which has gotten so incredibly competitive. But if you're Navy, you can't just say, oh, wow, we play in the American Athletic Conference against all these good teams. We're just going to have to start living with losing seasons. You got in the American Athletic Conference to win it. And in the early years of being in the AAC, Navy was constantly in the mix for the West Division Championship. They played in the American Athletic Conference Championship game against Temple one year. So that's not really an excuse to me. This is the conference you're in, and you need to do what it takes to be successful and beat these teams. Now, obviously, the AAC is changing. Gone are Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida, 3 of the heavyweights. The consistent heavyweights of the conference will be leaving, and I don't know when that's going to happen, but they're going to be replaced by schools that Navy played when they were an independent, the likes of Rice, Texas San Antonio, Florida Atlantic. Those are schools, the type of schools Navy had on its schedule when it was an independent. So the things are going to change in the American Athletic Conference. And if you're Navy, you say, yeah, these are teams we're more likely to beat. I mean, in the current situation where Cincinnati and Central Florida are, how often are you going to beat them on a year in and year out basis? Houston's been a tough program for Navy to beat over the years. So things are changing, but yes, Navy has to take a long, hard look at what's happening with the program, because 3 out of 4 losing seasons is unacceptable.
Right. Well, listen, Bill Wagner, it's been an absolute pleasure tracking the Navy midshipmen with you throughout this year. We started in, I think, early February and have been touching base with you throughout. So really appreciate your time with us. And I'm going to encourage everyone watching this to rush out, get a subscription to the Capital Gazette and also the Baltimore Sun. You're not going to be complete without both. Bill, thank you for all you've contributed. I look forward to seeing you next season.
Thanks, Graham. Good to be with you.